Recently, somebody wrote me this on Facebook. Pastor Rick, I've walked down many roads searching for happiness, but nothing is ever as good as it promises to be. I'm frustrated. I just want to be happy. Can you help me? And I would say to that person, if you're watching online right now, absolutely, I can help you. I want to start this series by giving you what I call 5 laws of happiness. And I apologize that I didn't put space in your outline for this. So you're just going to have to write on the sides, up, down the edge, because it's not on your outline. I added this after I wrote the outline, but I thought it would be a good introduction to this series that we're going to begin this week. 5 laws of happiness. When somebody says, I've been searching for happiness, I've been looking for happiness, I want to find happiness, this is what I tell them. Number 1, don't look for happiness, create it. Happiness is not something you look for. Happiness is something you create. And it's your choice. You're as happy as you choose to be. Actually, it's quite easy to create it, and we're going to be looking at it in this series. Number 2, happiness is not a goal. Happiness is not a goal. It's actually the result of right thinking, right living, right acting. It's the byproduct. If you make happiness the goal of your life, you're going to live a very self-centered life. And that's going to end up making you miserable. Making happiness the goal of your life will guarantee that you're never going to be happy. Happiness is never the goal. It is always the result. It's always the byproduct of something else. And so if you make it your goal, you're going to be miserable. Number 3, my habits create my happiness. My habits create my happiness. Happiness is a choice. We shape our habits, and then they shape us. And we're going to look at this in detail in this new series, how we shape our habits, and then our habits shape us. And you can create the habits of happiness in your life. Number 4, 4th law. Happiness based on happenings is temporary, but happiness built on habits is long-lasting. I'll say it again. Happiness that is built on happenings is temporary. I go to Disneyland, I'm happy. I come out, realize how much money I spent, I'm not happy. I have the happiness of going to see a movie, everybody's telling me it's great. It's not so great. I come out not happy, disappointed. Anything where you base your happiness on a happening, on a circumstance, on an occasion, as soon as the occasion's over, you lose your happiness. So you don't want that. Happiness based on happenings is short-term. It's temporary. Happiness based on habits is long-term. And you can be happy the rest of your life. And number 5, 5th law is this. Happy habits are as addicting as bad habits, but they're a whole lot more rewarding. There aren't the negatives that are given to bad habits. Now, bad habits take some time to develop. You don't develop them overnight. And the same thing with good habits. You don't develop them overnight. But happiness and the habits of happiness can be developed so that they become habitual in your life. Now, this weekend, we're beginning this new series I'm calling The Habits of Happiness. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the book of Philippians, verse by verse, through the books, through the chapters of Philippians. Now, Philippians is a great book. It's the happiest book in the Bible. The word joy, the word glad, the word enjoy, the word rejoice, the word happy, happiness. These words that are used in various forms 17 times in a very short book. It's the happiest book in the Bible. It was written by Paul, and what's amazing is this happiest book in the Bible is written by Paul while he's in prison in Rome, which means your happiness isn't based on your happenings or your happenstances. And actually what this book is a thank you note. Paul is writing to the church in Philippi, which is a city in Greece that he started, he planted. He's now in prison in Rome, and he's writing to thank them. He's thanking them for financial gifts that they've given to him. He's thanking them for their prayers, for their support, for their love, all these things. And it's actually the most personal book in the Bible. And we're going to look at it together for the next 12 weeks. as we go verse by verse through the book of Philippians. Now, I want to encourage you to bring your Bible with you because you can mark it up as we go straight through the chapters like we do this. If you want to be happy, where do you start? I mean, really, what would you start with? Money, sex, time? What would you start with? You say, we need to learn how to be really happy in life. Paul starts with relationships. With relationships. It is impossible to be happy while your relationships are unhappy. Everybody agree with that? I mean, you can meet all kinds of people. They got all kinds of money. They've got all kinds of fame. They've got every kind of pleasure you can imagine. But if they're in the middle of a divorce, they're not happy. If your relationships are unhappy, your life is going to be unhappy. So Paul, when he starts talking about and modeling the habits of happiness, he begins right off the bat, the first 11 verses of Philippians chapter 1, talking about how do you have happy relationships? How do you have healthy relationships? So we've got to start here before we can go anywhere else in the habits of happiness. Now, in the first 11 verses, Paul makes his description of his relationship. He describes his relationship to the people of Philippi, and he gives us 4 statements. And we're going to come back and look at these as habits you can develop to have healthier, happier relationships. Let me read it to you. Philippians chapter 1. This letter is from Paul and Timothy, slaves of Jesus Christ. It's written to all of God's people in Philippi who believe in Jesus Christ, and the elders and the deacons of the church. May God our Father and Lord Jesus Christ give you grace and peace. That's his introduction. Now he gets into his first subject. He says, every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God. I always pray for you, and I make my request with a heart full of joy, because you've been my partners in spreading the good news about Christ from the time you first heard it until now. And I am confident that God, who began this good work within you, will continue his work until it's finally finished on the day when Jesus Christ comes back again. Now, it's right that I should feel as I do about all of you, for you have a very special place in my heart. We've shared together the blessings of God, both when I was in prison, when I was out, defending the truth and telling others the good news. And God knows how much I love you and how I long for you. Can't you see the personal nature of this book? How much I love you and long for you with the tender compassion of Christ Jesus. And I pray that your love for each other will overflow more and more. And I pray that you will keep on growing in your knowledge and understanding, for I want you to understand what really matters, so that you may live pure and blameless lives until Christ returns. And may you always be filled with the fruit of your salvation, those good things that are produced in your life by Jesus Christ. For this will bring much glory and praise to God. Now, in that passage, just those few 11 verses, Paul models 4 relational habits that if you will just practice these things, your relationships will be more enjoyable and your happiness will be greater. They are easy to explain, they are simple to understand, but they are incredibly hard to do. Because when I tell you these, you go, oh yeah, I know this, but you don't do it. And so although it's easy for me to teach them, it's very hard for all of us to practice them. But if you will do these 4 relational habits and you'll build them in your life, your relationships will be transformed and you'll be happy. All right, let's look at it. First, number 1, to be happy, the first thing Paul says is this: I must be grateful for the people in my life. I must be grateful for the people in my life. Study after study after study after study after study link gratitude to happiness. It's been proven over and over by psychologists, sociologists, and others that the more grateful you are, the more happy you are. The more ungrateful you are, the more unhappy you are. And if you want to have good relationships, you start with the attitude of gratitude. You will be far happier, you will enjoy your relationships more if you will develop the habit of being grateful for the people in your life. Today, I want to ask you to join with Daily Hope as we focus on fulfilling the Great Commission of Jesus Christ. You know, sharing Jesus with others is the most important thing you can do. And if we join together, we can reach across the whole world with the message of Christ. Now, right now, through Daily Hope, the good news of Jesus reaches into almost every country of the world, including regions where it's difficult or dangerous to share the gospel. And it's even being translated into 25 different languages and counting. And by translating into these 25 languages, we're able to reach over 80% of the world's population. That's why I'm so excited to tell you that some incredibly generous friends have stepped forward and offered to double every single dollar you give in support of Daily Hope. Thanks to the matching grant, your gift will now go twice as far, and together, we can watch God transform the lives of people with the hope of Jesus Christ.
When you give to Daily Hope, you're helping share the hope of Jesus with people everywhere. And right now, your gift will be doubled by the $50,000 matching grant. And we'll send you Pastor Rick's The Habits of Happiness Bible Study book to say thanks.
Philippians chapter 1, verse 3, Paul starts off with this very first thing. Every time I think of you, now remember, he's in Rome, they're in a city called Philippi. Every time I think of you, I give thanks. I give thanks to my God. Paul says, you know what? I remember the good things about you, and I focus on the good times we've had. Friends, that simple truth right there is the source of good relationships. And when marriages stop doing this, they crumble. When you stop remembering why you got married in the first place, what attracted you to that person, when you stop remembering the good times, when you stop being grateful for your mate, your marriage is already on a long slide into oblivion. Paul says, every time I think of you, I give thanks to God for you. Let me ask you, just be real honest. When you think of the people in your life, do you automatically, is your first thought gratitude? No, it's not. No, it's what do they need to do for me? Are they late? Are they in a hurry? What's not right? What have we had a problem with? What do we got to get done? Your first thought is not gratitude. Paul says, when I think of you, the first thing I do is I think of gratitude. I'm grateful for who you are. I'm grateful for what you've done. Now, here's the problem with this. The problem with this is the longer you know someone, number one, the more you take them for granted. Isn't that true? The longer you know someone, the more you take them for granted. The more you focus on their faults, and the easier it is to remember bad times. I don't know why it is, but it's easier to remember bad times than it is happy times. Paul says, every time I think of you, I give thanks. If you would just develop this habit that whenever you think of the people in your life, your friends, your neighbors, your husband, your wife, your kids, your relatives, whatever, that the first thought is gratitude, it's going to change your relationship. Now, that's a habit you have to develop. It does not come natural. We are not by nature grateful people. We are by nature discontented people. We are by nature always wanting more, wanting things to be different. Philippians chapter 1, verse 5, Paul says it again. I thank God. I thank God for the help that you gave me. Now, if you know the story of this church that he started there was a woman named Lydia who was a businesswoman who opened up her home. And he says, from the very first day, you welcomed us. And you helped us from the very first day. And then, as I said, several times in Paul's travels, the Philippian church was funding Paul's missionary journeys. And in this particular instance, they had sent a man named Epaphroditus all the way to Rome to bring him a financial gift because Paul was in Rome by himself in prison. And Epaphroditus had nearly died on the way. We'll get to that later in the book. And now Paul is sending him back with this thank you note to to the people in Philippi. And he says, I thank God for the help you gave me. I just wonder, what is it that you have forgotten that other people have done for you? Again, the longer you know someone, the more you take them for granted, the more you look for their faults, and the more it's easier to remember the bad things than the good things. See, the truth is about Paul in Philippi, he didn't have a good time in Philippi. In fact, it was one of his roughest churches getting started. But you don't get any of that in this letter. The fact is, when Paul went to this city to start a church, he was beaten, he was whipped, he was humiliated, he was falsely arrested, he was thrown in a prison, he went through an earthquake, and then he was politely asked by the city leaders to leave town. When I thank God for you, I think of you, I thank God for you. What is he doing? He is choosing selective memory. This was not a happy place all the time. It wasn't all sunshine and lollipops and roses and rainbows and My Little Pony. It was a lot of bad stuff that happened. But Paul chose not to dwell on painful memories. Are you still living some painful memories with some people in your life? You've never let them off the hook. And you can't enjoy a relationship because you're still holding on to the past. Would you write this down? Memories are a choice. Memories are a choice. I remember hearing a story one time about two women talking, and one of the wives said to the other wife, said, don't you remember that time when your husband did da-da-da-da-da-da? And she said, I distinctly remember forgetting that. That's a choice. Your memories are a choice. Now, if you want to hold on to your painful memories, go right ahead, but you're not going to be happy. Paul had a lot of reasons to have painful memories in Philippi. It was not a happy time for everything that happened there. As I said, beaten, maligned, and all these things. But he says, every time I think of you, I thank God for you. He's choosing to be grateful for the people in his life. Now, in this series, I'm going to give you what I call happiness hints. And I'm going to put a little HH next to these happiness hints. And here's the first one I want to give you in the whole series. Remember the best and forget the rest. If you want to be happy, remember the best and forget the rest. Develop selective memory. By the way, September 21 is World Gratitude Day. Did you know that? It's World Gratitude Day, according to the United Nations. So here's my assignment for you this weekend. I want you to go home, make a list of the people in your life, and write down 5 or 10 things you can say, I'm really grateful for these things in their lives. It's the first habit. The attitude of gratitude will transform your relationship. If you're not grateful, you're going to have all kinds of complaining, worrying, all kinds of other things. I've got to be grateful for the people in my life. Number 2, the second habit of happiness in relational happiness is this. I need to not only be grateful for the people in my life, I need to pray with joy for the people in my life. I need to pray joyfully. I need to pray with joy for the people in my life. Now, Paul is praying, as we just read this passage, praying for these people. How would you like to have the Apostle Paul praying for you? You think that would help? The guy who wrote much of the New Testament? Don't you know those Philippians thought, hey, this is pretty cool. Paul is praying for us. Doesn't it encourage you to know when somebody is praying for you? Yes, it does. It encourages you. In fact, the thing that keeps me going is your prayers. And when people say, I'm praying for you, Pastor Rick, I take that serious because it's what I move on. It is that power that I move on. Paul says in verse 4, he says this, I always pray for you. Now, that's part of it, but notice the rest of the verse. And I make my requests, when he's praying for you, he says, with a heart full of joy. Now, I want you to just a minute, think of somebody who irritates you. Don't look at them, just think of them. Okay? Maybe somebody you've got a strained relationship with, or they just kind of rub you the wrong way. I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, do you pray for them? Okay, do you pray for it, or do you just complain and grumble and nag and nitpick? If you prayed more, you'd have a lot less to grumble, complain, nag, and nitpick about. So you can decide, does nagging work? No. Does prayer work? Yes. So why do you do more of the thing that doesn't work than does? Paul says, I pray for you, and you need to pray for the people in your life. But then he says, I pray for you, making requests with a heart full of joy. When you do you pray with joy? And let me give you a little secret here. There are things in people's lives around you you'd like to change. You don't want to change yourself. You want them to change. If she would just do this, if she would just do that, if he would just do this. And we always want to change other people. You can't. You can't change anybody. You cannot change anybody. They can only change themselves, and you can only change yourself. So all of that, trying to change your change program doesn't work. But you can pray, and God can change people. You might write this down. Positive praying is more effective than positive thinking. You know, people read all these books about positive thinking. Well, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm sure I'd rather have you thinking positively than negatively. But all the positive thinking in the world isn't going to change your husband or your wife or your child or your friend or your situation. Positive thinking is not enough. Positive thinking can change you, but it can't change somebody else. But positive prayer can. So positive prayer is more powerful than positive thinking. So I want you to write this down. Here's my little happiness hint. The quickest way to change a bad relationship to a good one, the quickest way, start praying for them. Start praying for them. It'll change you, and it can change them. Start praying for them. You say, well, what do I pray? Well, I would encourage you to pray what Paul prayed. And in verses 9 to 11, we have what Paul prayed. Here's what he says. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best, and that you may be pure and blameless until the day of Christ, and that you may be filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. What does he say? 4 things you can pray. Write these down. 4 things. Pray, and I would say pray these for your kids, pray these for your friends, pray these for your boyfriend, your girlfriend, pray these for your boss, pray these for me, anybody you care about. Pray with joy for the people in your life, and you pray these 4 things. First, pray they will grow in love. Pray that they will grow in love. Paul says that your love will grow more and more. Number 2, he says, pray that they will make wise choices. Pray that the people in your life, in your family, in your friends, and your neighbor, pray that they will make wise choices. Verse 9 and 10 says that you will know and fully know and understand how to make the right choices. Third thing to pray for the people in your life. Pray they will live with integrity. Pray that they will live with integrity. Paul says, I pray that you may live pure and blameless lives until Christ returns. And the 4th thing to pray is pray that they will become like Jesus. Parents, there's your prayer agenda right there. Husbands, wives, friends, there's your prayer agenda right there. Pray that they will become like Christ. Verse 11, that you will be filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. Circle the word fruit. What fruit's he talking about there? Well, we call it the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit is the character of Jesus. In Galatians 5:22 and 23 says this. The fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness. The fruit of the Spirit is goodness and faithfulness. The fruit of the Spirit is gentleness and self-control. What is that? It's a perfect picture of Jesus. Now, These 4 things, you can pray them for me any day of the week. Pray that I will grow in love. Pray that I will make wise choices. Pray that I will live with integrity. Pray that I will become more and more like Jesus. You can pray these for yourself. You can pray these for your spouse. And you know what? You can know they will be answered. Why? Because they're in the Bible. This is not a prayer you go, if it's your will, God. This is God's will. It's in the Bible. So you know God wants to answer that prayer.
If you are enjoying learning about the habits of happiness and want to go deeper into this study with Pastor Rick, I have some great news for you. Pastor Rick's brand new Habits of Happiness guided experience book is available to you right now. In this guided experience, you will learn the biblical habits of happiness and begin seeing things from God's perspective. This interactive, full-color, hardcover book is filled with biblical truths, practical lessons, and application exercises. It's a comprehensive study tool that will help you grow spiritually. The Habits of Happiness guided experience is available only through Daily Hope. Your gift to Daily Hope helps us share the hope of Christ with people around the world.
When you give a gift today, your gift will be doubled by the matching grant up to $50,000.